The big bad Jew question. It's a very big question, still possessing many people in the conspiracy world. They are quite possessed in some cases. Very angry people, very convinced that they have the answer to the problems of this world. I thought I'd put this question in its historical context, have a look at the history of this idea that Jews rule the world, and have a look at what the Bible says about it, about Jews. I think you'll find that interesting, especially in light of the belief that the Bible, the Old Testament at least, was written by Jews. With that, let's have a look at one of my rather long sub-chapters in the criminal Bible. Not just a look, I'm going to read and probably comment on my own writing. This is in the Satanic Political Science section. Stories that blind, divide, and conquer us. The Bible creates animosity between Jews and all non-Jews, but especially between Jews and Christians. Just imagine writing a book that accuses the Hindu god Shiva of killing the Buddhist god hero Buddha. It would be offensive. But that's what the Bible does by claiming that a Jew named Judas killed Jesus Christ, the holy hero of all Christians. If you're a Christian and you love your Jesus, you would seem to be set up for hating Jews. And this lie about the death of Jesus is still repeated by naive people who wish to blame the state of the world on Jews, especially elite Jews. What if elite Jews are members of the WCC hiding behind the Jew mask? Can you distinguish Jews in a crowd of Jews and Germans? I doubt it. And the Jew facade is convenient because the mind-manipulating media portray all Jews as uniquely innocent victims of World War II and of a long history of discrimination and persecution, which means pity puts them beyond criticism, especially among well-meaning, tender-hearted dullards. The Bible isn't innocent either. It is a powerful media weapon. Some of its stories seem intended to elicit pity for Jews, while other stories seem intended to anger or weaponize Jews by telling them that they were constantly victimized by non-Jews. Not Nazis, but Canaanites, Midianites, Philistines, and Babylonians, etc. It also weaponizes Jews by telling them that they are God's chosen race. Therefore, they are better than everyone else. And therefore, they are destined to defeat everyone by military force. And they are destined to seize land, the promised land, that was already occupied by other people. Oops. Essentially, Jews who believe the Bible should be Jewish supremacists. Fortunately, most maybe aren't. I wonder, who would write such a monstrous book? In Genesis, when a non-Jewish man slept with a Jewish woman named Dinah, The Jews killed the man and all his non-Jewish peers, and God did not protest. That means the Bible justifies extreme acts of racism by Jews. Would Jews write a book that portrays themselves as murderers? Outside the Bible, the pattern is the same. Historians tell us that Christians hated Jews because European nobles gave Jews good jobs as bankers, tax collectors, slave traders, and more. And historians claim Jews were poisoners of wells and eaters of Christian children. This history strongly motivates European Christians to hate Jews. History in scare quotes. Let's be serious. Would members of a Jewish minority in Europe dare to provoke the majority, the very people who pay their salaries, who are their customers? Wouldn't that be insane and suicidal? If Jews were half as bad as literature claims, wouldn't they all be dead already? Only fake Jews are super rich, and even they won't speak about Zionism or adopt strict conservative Jewish habits and headwear. Larry Ellison is never seen in synagogues and is an admitted religious skeptic. Mark Zuckerberg only recently reconnected with his Jewish heritage, and only recently means long after he became a billionaire. Michael Dell and Warren Buffett do not belong to a synagogue and do not have a publicly documented personal history of praying. All the so-called Jews in positions of power are fake or light Jews, just as all so-called Christians in power are fake Christians. And all members of the aristocratic WCC pretend they are not aristocrats, not sadists, not parasites, not cannibals. Wearing masks is essential to their cult. The Bible is a trap set for people who don't think or ask questions. Bible readers should ask why God granted Jews the status of God's favorite ethnic group. After all, Jacob and Abraham, despite being the first Jews to earn this status as God's favorites, did not worship God. Instead, Abraham agreed to sacrifice his son for God, and Jacob sacrificed 14 years of his life to the non-Jew Laban. They seem to me especially stupid people. Maybe that's why God liked them. Let's take that perspective. Christians should ask why the New Testament claims Jews wanted to kill Jesus. Is it believable? Jesus resurrected Jews, cleaned their synagogues, fed their poor and hungry, gave them sight, and generally performed good miracles for them. Admittedly, he accused Jewish religious leaders of murdering their own prophets, but he presented no evidence, and the Bible itself has no evidence. So why would the men he accused of murder want to murder him? They wouldn't want to murder him because Jesus was a Jew who prophesied. So murdering him would prove him correct. Might also upset a lot of people who benefited or want to benefit from a man who performs miracles. The Apostle Paul was tortured by Jews for preaching his version of Jesus' message. Is that believable? Were Jews frightened of a religion that promised forgiveness to criminals and eternal life to anyone who believed in Jesus? Wouldn't the Jews who tortured Paul like a religion that offered forgiveness and eternal life to criminals. Just have faith, beg for forgiveness, and up you go. What could be better than that? Some verses in the Bible were calculated to make stupid Jews racist, and supremacist Jews. Consider the following sentence spoken by Isaac to his son Jacob. May many nations serve you. A lovely thing for your father to say. Isaac believed he was speaking to his eldest son Esau. However, he actually spoke to Jacob, the father of Israel, the Jewish people. Now, some Jews believe God's plan is for all Jews to rule all non-Jews. To be fair to the Bible, Isaac did not say, many nations will serve you, but may many nations serve you. It's an expression of hope. But the word may suggests a passive attitude, and Isaac certainly did not give advice on how to dominate non-Jews. Ironically, Genesis ends with Isaac's grandson Joseph becoming the master of his fellow Jews, his 11 brothers, who together represent 11 Jewish nations. Nations again. Ironically, that means Isaac's hope about ruling many nations was fulfilled without involving non-Jewish nations. They rule each other. I did provide some visuals in this chapter, how empire builders used divide and rule. And that's what's going on with the Jewish question, the Jewish conspiracy topic. Lovely etching here, or is it a drawing? Etching, I believe. This illustrates the medieval and post-medieval blood libel. What should I call it? Controversy. Apparently, Jews were secretly, cunningly abducting Christian children, sacrificing them, eating them, drinking their blood. I guess it's in part a mockery of the Christian Eucharist ritual, which itself is based on actual cannibalism practices of the WCC. So they keep recycling their stories. I have a careful look at this. The title of this picture: 6 youth killed in Regensburg, Germany. An illustration from Johann Baptist M's book Bavaria Sancta, The Life and Martyrdom of Holy Men and Women, reputedly from 1627, which is at least 200 years after Jews allegedly began facing accusations of cannibalism. Reputedly, the artist intentionally created an implausible image by depicting the child being bled on the table, posing quite elegantly instead of thrashing wildly for his life. It's just not believable. Among the 5 dead children are 2 with knees up, an unrealistic posture for a dead child. The supposedly Jewish cannibals are not wearing traditional Jewish headgear, but at least they are elderly, at least 3 of them, which hints at the WCC's Fountain of Youth tradition. Yes, every youth is a potential fountain of blood. The book of Psalms encourages Jews to create an empire and take possession of heathens, or some versions say nations, and still more repugnantly, to treat heathens as their inheritance. Ask of me, and I shall give you the heathen, or Gentiles, or nations, for your inheritance, and the farthest parts of the earth for your possession. Thus spoke God to the Jews. This sounds insane. But God has loopholes. He did not say when he would fulfill a Jew's wish to have heathens for their inheritance. And the promise to give them the farthest parts of the earth could just mean he would give them Antarctica. The book of Isaiah reinforces Psalm's madness by stating, "For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose out of Israel and will make them rest upon their own ground," the promised ground. "And the stranger shall be joined with them." The stranger, the Gentile, the Goyim, maybe, well, shall be joined with the Jews and shall adhere, stick to the house of Jacob, the Jews, I guess. Although this phrase, house of so-and-so, is a Western European aristocratic concept. "And the people, Jews, shall take them," the strangers, the non-Jews, "and bring them into their place." Sounds nice. "And the house of Israel shall possess them." Not so nice. "In the land of the Lord as servants and handmaids, and make them captives that had taken them captive, and shall subdue their oppressors." This there is now a little ambiguous. Is that the Jews or the strangers' oppressors? All the confusion is, of course, intentional. The above revenge fantasy is based on the lie that Gentiles or Goyim captured and oppressed Jews. But who captured and oppressed them? The Babylonians? But if they lived, they died long ago. And in fact, the great Babylonian kingdom is fiction. In any case, no one in Iran or Iraq traces their ancestry to known Babylonians who lived 2,500 years ago and captured and oppressed Jews. So God's promise is a joke. Outside the Bible, other stories are also designed to support the idea that Jews were chosen, not by God, but by European nobles and kings. For example, history claims that in medieval Spain, King Henry II prohibited Jews, presumably wealthy ones, from wearing fine linen so that they would not enrage jealous Christians. It's beyond a silly story. Extravagant clothing was supposedly an issue among Catholic clergy, not Jews. And that story also reeks of nonsense. Who cares about some expensive clothes when the wealthy live in palaces, allegedly fund wars, and secretly commit cannibalism and human farming? Clothes seems like a very minor issue. The following law, addressed to Jews, seems intended to create anti-Semites, Do not hate an Edomite, for he is your brother. Do not hate an Egyptian, because you lived as an alien in his country. Well, if Jews must not hate Edomites and Egyptians, that implies that they can hate everyone else, provided they did not live, quote, as an alien in their country, unquote. That's funny, because Jews live in nearly all countries as aliens, meaning outsiders who immigrated long ago from who knows where, which means they are not permitted to hate anyone by their own law. To incite anti-Semitism, Revelation refers to Jew places of worship as the synagogue of Satan. This phrase is often cast about by anti-Jew baiters working to turn non-Jews into simpletons. The synagogue of Satan. Well, yeah, what evidence do we have that Satan is at work in synagogues? Well, we might argue that in the past, synagogues were not synagogues, but as I've argued, perhaps too often, they were slaughterhouses and kitchens for cannibals and carnivores in general. To divide neighbors, Deuteronomy 23 permitted Jews to let their sheep eat as much food from their neighbor's vineyard and grain field as they wished, but without filling containers or cutting the crop with a sickle. How do you feed? Well, that's not so nice, is it? Letting your animals eat your neighbor's crop. He kindly granted them permission, the Jews, permission to steal only as much as they could with their bare hands. Oh, the sheep are not allowed to run about free. You have to collect with your bare hands. Well, try fending off starvation by reaping handfuls of grain with your bare hands. This might work for a few weeks, but once the farmer reaps his grain, the field will provide no grain for many months. Again, we have what appears to be a verse that grants Jews privileges above other people, making them God's chosen ones. However, read more carefully, we see that the verse is a joke. Another lovely picture supposedly depicting what did I call it? The blood libel, which basically means the belief that Jews were abducting and eating Christian children. Yeah, if you think that the media is giving us good evidence today to hate, well, at least Israeli Jews, at least the Israeli government, have a look at these supposedly medieval paintings. This one is 18th century paintings of Jews allegedly engaged in abducting and eating Christian children. Blood Libel, an 18th century painting by Carol de Prevotte well, it's hanging in a cathedral, looks like, I'm not sure what country that is. Note that right of center, oh, what sloppy writing, right of center. A Jew in black hat is offering money to a woman right there. Have a closer look. There's the black hat, his hand extended, a round coin apparently being offered to her for the maybe sickly child in her arms. This implies that Christian women sold their children to Jews. Yes, and they are complicit, so who do you blame? That's the new question. So they undermined the entire narrative that Jews are guilty. This painter undermined that. Also, this, I guess, Jew is perhaps not so much interested in the child as in the child's little toy, maybe a marble, which he seems determined to take. And the child seems maybe willing to give it, to share it. In the upper left quadrant, we have a group of men extracting a child from a barrel in which he was, I guess, upside down. And this man appears to be intent on doing what? He's holding a bowl, small bowl with, I guess, water in it, and a larger bowl here, as if he's preparing to wash a newborn child. This would be the vagina, very dilated, and a baby coming out. And we might guess that he's intent on baptizing this child, baptizing the child's foot. Exactly like John the Baptist, who baptized Jesus' feet. And Jesus, didn't he baptize the feet of his apostles, his disciples? Yeah, nothing malevolent happening here. We do have some babies lying around, this one with a very evil face. This one just looks tired. No kitchen utensils around, no oven. Really, maybe not a cooking pot, that's just a basin. We do have a dog. You might think he's eating a child's foot, but I'm doubtful. Dog appears to be distracted looking at us. Could be just playing with the child. One hopes, but in any case, the dog is not a Jew. Last time I asked, he wasn't. Allegedly, in the past, Jews were accused of blood libel, which is a polite way of saying they were accused of eating Christian children. Of course, this is a WCC joke. The very, very likely truth is that European aristocrats farmed children and stole and continue. I changed the tense because this is probably continuing. They steal their blood to artificially prolong their health and their lives. Allegedly, in the past, Jews were also accused by Christians of witchcraft. The Bible testifies for them. It claims that Jacob practiced witchcraft when he used wands or sticks to influence the sexual reproduction of goats, animals commonly associated with witchcraft and Satanism. And young goats are known as kids. So we are talking about human farming. Jacob also emulated witches by concocting a special stew that convinced his hungry brother to sacrifice his inheritance. Moses practiced witchcraft when he used his power to control a serpent, another animal associated with Satanism. And Moses wrote, "Do not allow a sorceress to live," which means he allowed sorcerers to live. This bias reflects Christian Europe's historical witch hunts, which apparently exempted male witches or wizards from persecution. And those witches were not Jewish, they were pagans, heathens, supposedly, of course. It's all, first I thought it was all just anti-pagan propaganda, as if, real natives really existed at the time the Bible was written. But it's not that. It's pure distraction, this idea that pagans were witches. It's based on nothing, neither witchcraft nor pagans. Real pagans didn't exist. The Jewish prophet Nahum blamed war, death, and plunder on witchcraft. And the prophet Micah boasted that God would destroy Jewish witchcraft, and you will no longer cast spells, unquote. Such verses support the Christian superstition that Jews practiced witchcraft and must therefore be killed or converted. So there you go. There's the media monster, which is the Bible, encouraging Christians to believe that Jews practiced witchcraft. The Penta in Pentateuch, which is the name of the first 5 books of the Bible, indicates the number 5, an occult and satanic number commonly recognized in pentagrams and pentacles. And the Jewish covenant secretly refers to covens or congregations of witches. Such things could inspire Christians to think the entire Pentateuch or Torah is the work of witches. That's what they would like us to believe. The Bible also sows animosity towards non-Jewish women. For example, Jezebel was killed on suspicion of being a witch. In contrast, no man or prophet was killed for being a wizard. Even though the prophet Elijah performed acts of magic, they are considered miracles, not magic. However, King Saul hired the witch of Endor to practice necromancy, which greatly angered God. So God gave Saul's kingdom to King David. This, however, was a bad decision because David killed an innocent man for his wife, so that he could have his wife. While Saul never did anything immoral. But God doesn't care about morality. He just wants to be worshipped. And for some reason doesn't like necromancy, even though that harms no one. It's just a bit foolish and desperate to want to communicate with the dead. Where, you might wonder, is Endor? Endor, yes, that's the place associated with the witch Paul hired, the witch of Endor. Where is Endor? No one knows. It's Saul's indoor place. Yeah, it's wordplay. And what kind of witch lives indoor? Maybe that's just the wife, his wife. She led him into temptation, the temptation of necromancy. Terrible stuff. But a door, D-O-R, is also a burrowing insect. And the prefix en can mean in English or within. Burrowing, oops, a burrowing insect. Burrowing relates to necromancy because both take us underground, in the ground. Today, the situation has reversed. Instead of being encouraged to hate Jews, we are mostly encouraged to pity and respect Jews. Well, maybe not mostly, but halfway. There seems to be a nice balance between reasons given to hate Jews and reasons given to pity Jews. Only serious rabble-rousers and finger-pointers continue to blame the world's evil on Jews and Jewish conspiracies. The pity the Jews narrative originated with and rests on the belief in the Holocaust, which claims that Jews were genocided during World War II by the Nazi regime. Now, just as we had no evidence that Jews were abducting and eating Christian infants, we now have no evidence that Jews were genocided in concentration, no convincing evidence that they were genocided in Nazi concentration camps and persecuted in pogroms, nor do we have good evidence that Jews posing as Bolsheviks are responsible for killing millions of Christians in Ukraine, UK reign, and Russia. Now, thanks to the Holocaustic story, that Nazi bakers squeezed 6 million Jews into their bread ovens. Even if I did not see how it was done, criticizing bagels is a hate crime that could land you in jail, or me. In some countries, to further paralyze the mediated mind, in addition to portraying Jews as the most pity-deserving, guilt-eliciting ethnic group, the media masters have simultaneously portrayed them as the most hate-deserving, anger-eliciting ethnic group. How? By repeatedly staging violent attacks and oppressive policies against the helpless Palestinians, the Jews of Israel. Even now, 80 years into this brain-bashing, mind-washing soap opera, although Israel has complete control over everything in Gaza and the West Bank, the Palestinians there continue to have unlimited access to the internet and continue to post evidence that Israel is guilty of crimes against humanity. When are we going to realize that Palestinians are allowed to post their photos and videos of atrocities by Israel because those images are required to blind, divide, distract, and conquer us? And Israel allows those images to be posted on social media because those images prove nothing against them. Nothing that can be used in a court of law. It's fakery. We are the targets, not the Palestinians. Oh, a little clip from Henry Ford's International Weekly, the Dearborn Independent, which was devoted to exposing the Jewish conspiracy, the greatest problem of the world. I have this sarcastic comment below. Car magnate Henry Ford led a campaign to make us stupid by blaming our problems on Jews, as if stupidity isn't the world's real problem, as if Jews invented the cruelty of the assembly line, Ford invented it, as if the millions killed by cars since their invention is a Jewish plot. Dearborn might be code for deer, the animal dearborn, which is a dehumanizing phrase. They love to dehumanize us. We're just deer, prey to them. A nice photo of a pogrom, 1903. Victims of the Kishinev pogrom caused by a blood libel. In 1903, Jews were still eating Christian children. Seem to have, I can't identify the gender, but I thought this looked like Jewish women. Looks like a pile of laundry with people entwined. Well, this photo is not valid evidence of anything, likely stage. The date reduces to the number 13, 1903. The word pogrom is a near anagram for program, as this photo is programming people. Pogroms were meant to program people to the Christian minority, to hate Jews. Pogrom is not even a Russian word. The word grom is English for ship boys, and po is Polish for after. Jews were accused of being after Christian boys, yes. But now the word itself implies the existence of an invisible hand of men who spoke English and invented words by cobbling together words of different languages, a habit of the WCC. The Bible is also calculated to divide men and women. At no point does a single character in the Bible show love for a woman or mother, nor vice versa. Touching, kissing, and mutually enjoyable sexual intercourse never happens. Women hardly speak in the Bible. Men are constantly concerned with themselves and each other. One Mosaic law gives husbands the authority to expel their wives from their homes for any reason. Quote, if a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him because he finds something indecent about her, and just menstrual blood would be enough, I suppose. And if he then writes a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her from his house, then let him write a bill of divorce. What's the difference between a certificate of divorce and a bill of divorce? Put it in her hand and send her out of the house. Again? Oy, this sounds so strange. Laughable, a joke. What woman would want to marry into such an unjust, sexist, and cruel culture? Obviously, the phrase, something indecent, does not set a meaningful limit. We are divided not only from our fellow men and women, but from nature, and the Bible reinforces this separation by never, never, never telling a single story and giving even one verse that expresses love for nature. Last photo here. On the left, alleged Bolshevik atrocities in Russia. On the right, alleged Bolshevik atrocities in Latvia. Both photos prove that humans who are neither bleeding nor maimed can pretend to be dead. So I've put a little title over these two photos. Funny little word play, the liars, the liars. Maybe that is the inspiration behind the word lie. Faking death has a long history with the English-speaking WCC. Yeah, hear more liars. Well, I hope that helps put to rest and answer, so to speak, the Jewish question. Please check out my little video on my books. Contact me at, what's that? Oh, what's my contact? Prophet of Fiction at proton.me. And I do have a couple books available on Lulu, and I have, of course, PDFs available. I'm still at work on this one, particularly now, the Criminal Bible. I don't even know why I call it a book. The average length of a nonfiction book is between 60 to 80,000 words, and my Criminal Bible is clocking in at nearly 250,000 words, so really 3 books. And I will have to publish it, I suppose, in 3 volumes.